title as we continue here on Main Street at 18 minutes after 4. University students in Nova Scotia are getting a break. In exchange for $180 million more from the province over the next 3 years, the universities have promised not to increase tuition. The Macdonald government is sweetening the pot for students who have a Nova Scotia home address by offering them bursaries. Here's Education Minister Karen Casey making the announcement today in Halifax.
This government has made educating to compete an immediate priority, one of our 5. In last fall's throne speech, we committed to continuing stable and predictable funding for universities and to make university education affordable. And that's why we are here today, to honor that commitment. In a few minutes, the government and the universities will sign a new Memorandum of Understanding. This agreement, the product of an immense amount of work done by government, university presidents, and student representatives, lays an outstanding educational foundation on which we can build in this province. This agreement greatly increases the funding to universities, and it freezes tuition for all students over the next 3 years. No student, whether from Nova Scotia, Canada, or any other country, whether in an undergraduate or a graduate or a professional program, will pay more in tuition for the next 3 years. This is a significant effort. Over those 3 years, the province will spend $180 million more in direct funding to universities to meet their needs and eliminate any tuition increases. We want to do more. We wanted to do more. So we have established the $66 million Nova Scotia University Student Bursary Trust to further make the cost of education more affordable for Nova Scotia and out-of-province Canadian students over the next 3 years. For Nova Scotia students, the bursary will provide a maximum per-student benefit of $761 in the upcoming year, increasing to $1,022 in 09-10 and to $1,283 in 10-11. Canadian students from outside Nova Scotia will get a bursary in the 2010-11 school year to ensure that the differential does not exceed $1,000. Together, the bursary and the funding agreement will bring the cost of education borne by Nova Scotia students attending Nova Scotia universities to the national tuition average by 2010-2011. The Premier's commitment will be met.
Thank you, Minister Casey, and on behalf of my colleagues from all of the universities in the province, I'd like very much to thank the government for the tremendous vote of confidence and the terrific investment that your government has provided and announced today. This MOU is an important initiative that benefits students, universities, and our province. Students, universities, and the government will benefit because, first, as the Minister has indicated, tuitions will remain stable over the next 3 years and indeed will begin to go down. For universities, 3-year operational funding enables us to produce better planning and to look at all of the challenges that face us in the upcoming few years with a sense of confidence that we have the support of the government and we have the financial resources necessary to tackle all of our concerns. And I think for the government and for the province, this reinvestment that the Minister has announced in a strategic provincial asset will contribute significantly, as the Minister has suggested, to one of the government's top priorities, educating to compete. This investment will help maintain quality academic programs and enhance the student experience for all students from whichever part of the country or whichever part of the world they come from. It will enable our universities, each one of them, and as a system collectively, to stay nationally competitive. And as you heard, almost a third of our students come from other parts of the country and other parts of the globe. And they come because we have a superb higher education system here in Nova Scotia. And this investment by the government will help us build on that strength and make sure that we remain competitive in this vital part of our national economy.
Dalhousie University President Tom Travis speaking today at Province House. He and the Minister of Education signed a deal to freeze university tuition in Nova Scotia for 3 more years. Paris Meilleur is Executive Director of the Association of Nova Scotia Student Associations. Hi, Paris.
Hello.
So what do you think of what we just heard of the government's announcement today?
Well, it was much better than we were expecting a couple of days ago. We've been very successful over the last week lobbying the provincial government to actually follow through on this commitment to show that they're going to reduce tuition fees to the national average. They made this announcement, this commitment in May 2006, and had done very little until this announcement to live up to those commitments. So we were very happy to see at least some sort of plan laid out for what the tuition fee reductions are going to look like for the next 3 years. Of course, we're still not happy about what's happening for out-of-province students, especially given Nova Scotia's, demographic crisis in terms of an aging population, declining enrollments in our universities. We need students from Ontario, from BC, from Alberta, from everywhere else to come here, and a differential tuition fee isn't the way to do that.
Can you just elaborate on that a little bit
Sure.
more, because it was sort of came very quickly and went very quickly when we heard the announcement. What's going to happen for out-of-province students?
Sure. Out-of-province students will have their tuition frozen, so it won't go up for 3 years. And then in the third year of the MOU, the last year, they'll receive a $261 bursary. So they'll get a little bit of a rebate off of their tuition. But that won't be a significant amount, and that will still be about $1,000 difference between what out-of-province students pay and between what those born in Nova Scotia pay. Nova Scotia will be only the second province in Canada to do this. This practice of differential fees is done in Quebec, and to the chagrin of many, this is not a policy that a lot of people are in favor of, and especially given the fact that we do have so many students from outside of the province, and we just don't have the population to support our number of institutions. We definitely need to be looking at how we actually do attract these students to come and to stay.
So what will that mean then, say in 2010 or 2011, for students who want to come to Nova Scotia from out of the province? How much would they pay, say, in Ontario or Manitoba as compared to Nova Scotia? Will it be higher?
Yeah, well, there's still, this whole national average business is a bit difficult because it is changing. So what they're predicting is that the national average will go up by about 2.8 or 3% per year. So basically what their numbers project is that by the time 2010, 2011 comes up, students coming to University of Nova Scotia will be paying about $1,000 more than the national average, and about $1,000 more than those born in Nova Scotia. So that's a huge problem.
A considerable incentive not to come for students.
Absolutely. Yeah. I will say though that we were glad to see this. It does put us back sort of squarely on the path to reach the tuition reductions by this time, and certainly, $1,283 for Nova Scotia students is a significant decrease in tuition. So from that perspective, it's a great thing for Nova Scotia students. We just need to spread the benefit out larger and more widely.
So this plan covers the next 3 years. What's going to happen after that?
Well, that's the big question mark, actually. That's one of the things, not just with tuition, but especially with the funding formula, that we're really concerned about. There's 2 schools in particular that are going to be hitting crisis point come year 4, as we're calling it. Acadia University and Cape Breton University are small schools. They're currently experiencing declining enrollment. And after the end of this 3-year funding formula, or this 3-year transition formula outlined in the MOU, their funding will be entirely based on enrollment, which, if they can get a number of students in their institutions and do some things in terms of specialization and so on, should be fine. But if not, then Acadia and CBU are going to be hitting crisis point in 4 years from now. So what we're really focused on is how do we start that discussion and start that debate about what's going to happen to the system, what's the relationship between post-secondary, both the universities and the community college system, and some of our broader issues around healthcare, around the knowledge economy, around poverty reduction. How can we use our education system to further these other goals we have? And through doing that, we think that we can avoid some of the crises that we're going to approach with Acadia and CBU if we don't get proactive about this.
So in simple terms, how can we avoid this, and how do you get the universities and the province on board for that?
Well, unfortunately, it's not going to be one of those things that can happen simply or overnight. So I think that the best thing we can do right now is to spend the next 3 years while we have some sort of stable funding agreement in place, beginning this conversation and beginning this sort of discussion and debate about what the system looks like. We have a huge system of post-secondary education and a very small population to support it. So let's ask these big, broad, fundamental questions about what role post-secondary should be playing in our system, and then maybe we can answer some of those questions. When we get to year 4, maybe we'll start to be ready to deal with it then.
All right. Well, we will leave it there for today, and I guess we'll pick it up later on, hopefully before 4 years.
Well, hopefully. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for coming in.
Take care.
Today's Memorandum of Understanding will provide stable funding for universities for the next 3 years, as we mentioned. Paris Meilleur is Executive Director of the Association of Nova Scotia Student Associations.